Hi, everybody. My name is Kishore Shankar Narayan, and I welcome you all to this webinar on NLP versus NLP. That's natural language processing of machine learning versus neuro-linguistic programming. That is for the human mind that we are working on. So today we are going to just identify in brief that what these involves, both of this involves, and what happens, how these can be clubbed together, and we will try and understand how it can solve each other's problem. So that's one thing. And this webinar has been organized by Alma Mater as once again, and then this is right. These are the links which you can see on the screen. We are all available in right all the social media. These are the social media, not all, but then these are the social media platforms where we are available, and you can just go there, click right wherever you can. You need to share this right content that we are publishing regularly, right? And our channels, do subscribe to them, and don't forget to press the bell icon to take you, I mean, or to notify you regularly, like whatever, whenever we are updating different videos of different genres, different learnings that we regularly do. Uh, our websites are also available where you can just visit us there and know more information on. So about Alma Mater was launched in the year 2004, and ever since then, like we have trained over 500,000 people across, right? So right from most of the behavioral training that we have conducted, right, till right mind control workshops where we can actually help you to train your brain and right get into systems like help yourselves up, right? A lot of self-help training programs that we conduct, and there are different sets of behavioral aspect trainings which we provide to right a lot of institutes for their students and their if they're companies, their staff, on behavioral aspects, or these kind of mind uh, control workshops where it helps them to manage their work properly. And as I told earlier, it's like we have trained over 500,000 individuals across the last few years that we have been. Uh, we are also into recruitment processing where we help people to enhance their career and get onto a new career, or right, just get onto a career which they desire of. With Alma Mater, there is a back office, a KPO setup where we process data. At the same time, like we process different bookkeeping work, and then like all the backend activity that takes care of is taken care on in the KPO. Now, we launched a program called Sparks. It's a support program aimed at raising knowledge and skills, specifically aimed at, as it mentions, at raising knowledge and skills. So we will be right regularly upgrading skills for people, helping them on various skills. So if you're a skill provider, please contact us. And at the same time, like if you are looking for some skill enhancement for yourself, feel free to contact us as mentioned earlier on any of the links that is available. It's easy to find us. So, and if you want to talk to us, understand what you are capable of, please do contact us, because we also have something called as psychometric assessment for individuals who are still as students, I mean, maybe in 8th standard, or right, you're a professional working somewhere, you still need to understand your career, right? We have psychometric tests for that, right? Just contact us and like we should be able to help you out. Coming to today, right? Today we are going to talk about a couple of things. That's called, one is called as natural language processing, right? It's one of the machine learning algorithms that works for data scientists, and not only data scientists, like a lot of developers, software developers use natural language processing to understand human languages, that we will talk about it in some time. And the second part, which has been there for ages, that's neuro-linguistic programming. That's about the human brains, how it perceives, how it it collects data. In simple terms, how it collects data and how much of this data gets processed and how it gets processed. That is what we are going to understand about neuro-linguistic programming. So now, in both these cases, there is something common that's called as the language. Now, let's understand one thing. Like, if I'm talking to Spandana, and Spandana understands one of the languages, I mean, as even within this team, if like Spandana is there and I'm there and we are talking, and I just ask Spandana, say that Spandana bagunaru. Spandana?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can reply in your language.
Yeah. బాగున్నాము, మీరు ఎలా ఉన్నారు?
So now, in simple terms, like it was just a couple of words which we spoke. All right. How many of you really understood what we spoke? Right. So there is this question mark. Similarly, right, if in India, this is only just one of the examples, like which is there. In India itself, there are like every 50 kilometers, there is a dialect which changes, right? Same way, language, right? If you see a currency note, like it will give you a list of languages that it is, right, just written and spoken. So how many languages as humans that we understand? So if we have to make the computer understand what we understand, it's right a pretty challenging task. Let's learn more about the languages. So there has been a continuous evolving thing that happens with languages. So right from Tamil language, which is considered to be the oldest language, like beyond like 7,000 years ago, when Tamil language has been dated back to the latest. I'm sure like you have not heard about this language called as Light Wall Piri. Has anybody heard about this language, Light Wall Piri?
No, sir.
Yeah, so this is one of the latest language which was just launched right around 35 years back. And this language, right, is spoken by 350 people in the Northern Territory of Central and Central Northern regions of Australia. So we are just talking about one region, right? There is this language which is being spoken. Now, this way, in between this, right, Tamil and Light Wall Piri, right, there are more than 2,700 different languages. Forget about the dialects, right? India itself has more than 3,000 dialects, right, that is spoken. But then, like, if you're talking about languages specifically, which is like there are certain terms and conditions for right a language to be formed, right, there are certain number of words that are required to be designed, and then it has to enable some kind of communication, and then it gets termed as the language. So these are so there are these languages which is there, right? And latest ones, right, as I told you, the latest one is Light Wall Piri. And then like you have Esperanto and Lingala and Gunyandi. So these are languages like which probably like we have not even heard about these, right? But then these still are languages. So forget about when you have not heard about it. From human mind, if you have to process it, how are we going to process it? And then, right, just teach the computer right? What we have learned about the languages. So that's one of the major challenges that is going to happen across natural language processing for the machine learning. Right? We'll talk in just a bit what happens, right? Forget about this regular languages. We are even inventing new fictional languages. So a lot of the rings, you've heard about that movie, correct?
Yes, sir.
Right? In a lot of the rings, there is Elvish language, which is called as Cunea. So now Cunea is a language by itself, but then like when we talk in Hindi, Cunea. So it changes, right? The moment it changes, the word formation, the way it is spoken, the way it is understood by the other person, it changes, right? Same way, Game of Thrones has this language called Dotharki. So Dotharki in right Hindi is like two drunkards, right? Or two wild people, right? Those people who are not really. So language, a language is formed, a fictional language, and named after, and then, but then, right, if you're talking about it into a different language, the same way, the same pronunciation you use, the meaning of it just changes immediately. Similarly, right, Avatar, right? Avatar, there was a new language which was developed, which took 6 months just to develop the right vocabulary, and that's called as Navi, right? And Navi in Marathi becomes new, but then like it's a language by itself, so the meaning changes as the words changes, the formation of the words, the formation of the right alphabets, the dialects, the tone, all this changes, right? From region to region it changes, and this needs to be told to the computer, and the computer needs to work on it. This is only one part of it, remember that. We will be talking in depth about it. And then like we have our own Bahubali language, right? Kiliki. So that they are claiming that it's the latest language because it's like somewhere around 2015, 7 years back, this language was being formed. So every day there is something new that is happening with the languages. So if we have to learn these languages, is it easy? Any
No.
languages? Yes, no?
No, sir.
Sir.
Right? So
No.
it becomes pretty challenging just to understand one language. Now imagine, right, if you have to convert all this, tell this to the computer and teach the computer the languages, right? So for example, when Rajnikant was trying to teach, right, whom? There was somebody in, right, Rajnikant's movie called as Robo. So who was he trying to teach? He was trying to teach the Robo. And he was trying to teach the Robo all the languages, all the different aspects. So they are creating this artificial intelligence to these sensory powers and these languages that, right? So it's being trained. So every language gets a particular software, and that software gets converted into certain way, and then yes. So this is just one aspect that we are working on. Computer understands only one language, that's called as binary, and binary has only two things, 0 and 1. So imagine converting all these, right, into zeros and 1 to tell, right, the computer what to do, because computer cannot understand our natural human languages. So machine learning is most incomprehensible to most people because it's not, right, it's not going to understand, and you can't tell 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1, so that computer understands. So to convert these, right, natural language processing comes into the picture, right? It enters to bridge the gap between the human communication and the computer understanding. So it's a complete process to convert these languages into, right, the zeros and one that computer understands. So here, what NLP does is NLP empowers and trains the computer to communicate with the humans in their native language by helping them read the texts, hear the speech, interpret the audio or the text messages, measure the sentiments, whether somebody is happy or sad or whatever it is, whether it is a good emotion, bad emotion, neutral emotion, right? And much more to it. So all this are, right, really, right, the job that is being done by NLP to train the computers. So for a, right, one of the natural language processing thing that developers have come up with is about converting, right, text into audio. So if you go and visit our, right, English language made easy, right, that video, there has been no, right, human talking. That video has been, right, done by using the recorded voice. So it has been trained to, right, read the alphabets that are, I'm not the alphabet, the words that are put in, and the computer reads that, and it's reading throughout line by line. So if you have not visited, right, just go and right, just go if you want to learn English, and it's just a 90-minute video to help you to learn English. It will definitely, if you go through it again and again, you'll know that, okay, it's not the human voice that is, it's the computer voice that is there. Similarly, like you have the most famous voice of Google navigating you, right, from one end to the other. When it starts talking to you, it tells you to take right, left, go straight, get into this lane, get into that lane, right ahead there is a traffic, right? How it tells? It tells it through the natural language processing that has been done and created, right? Now, with all this data coming up across, like if you see, right, the data is coming throughout, right? Whatever we are talking, there is a data that is getting generated. Whatever we are, right, thinking, we are putting in, typing it, data is getting generated. We have seen previously also where, right, every single minute, how much data gets collected, right? For this interaction and transaction in the digital world that is happening, natural language has become one of the more crucial things for businesses, because whatever people are talking, the computer understands and it gives back that, okay, these are the things, this is the data that I have collected, and this is what people are talking about, right? So now, thanks to NLP, companies can now harness vast volumes of raw business data, right, and social media chatter, etc., to make sense of the data and take data oriented decisions. So they can now predict what the other person can talk or other person wants to type. So you have that text which keeps predicting that, is this the word that you're trying to type, is right? So autofills that are getting there, that's one of the, right, systems where natural language processing comes in the picture. So when you're training your voice and helping, right, Siri or Google or Alexa, when you're actually talking to them and telling them that, okay, this is my voice, understand my voice, this is how I speak. So it stores the data, it processes it, and then it's like there are voice control system activated. So that's one of the advantages of natural language processing. Now, the challenges for natural languages processing is what we are talking, finding the meaning of it. First and very simplest challenge. There are many other challenges, but the simplest challenge is finding the meaning of what we are talking about. Because human language is filled with ambiguities. So I talk about homonyms, your homophones, sarcasm, idioms, metaphors, grammar, usage exceptions, variation in sentence structure, everything, right? When people are excited, when people are sad, when the same words when people are saying like, hi, how are you? Hi, how are you? Right? These are the same words, but then, right, spoken in different tone. It changes, the meaning entirely changes. So the programmers must teach natural language driven applications, right, to recognize and understand accurately from the beginning. If those, right, if the applications are supposed to be useful in the future. So it's like they're training and training and training and training, and then the output comes in. So it takes a lot of time and efforts, right? Any questions so far? Yes, no?
No, sir.
Okay. So let's go and see a sample work of natural language processing, what happens with the data, So let's see. Yeah. So this is one data. Now, the media chatter, everybody knows, right? So in media, there is a chatter. There is something called as Twitter, where everybody chat. It's just like they just put something and everybody starts loading in details with them. So Twitter is one thing. So the case here is we are supposed to find the sentiment, right? What Twitter is talking about, vaccination. So let's say whether somebody should take vaccine or not, right? And if you're talking about vaccine, right, if everybody is tweeting, how would you know how the world is going to talk? So are you going to sit and listen to everybody or see everybody's tweet and say that, oh yeah, this is what this person is talking. This person spoke with sarcasm, that person spoke with emotions, that person has additional hashtag attached to it, that means he's very happy about it. All this when you're talking about, it's not right feasible to ask you to read every tweet, right, and tell us the result. So by the time you complete all the tweets, right, you might just get old. So we don't want you to do that. So what we do, we have trained computers, right, through natural language processing, right, we are going to find out what people are talking about vaccine, right? So I'm just going to take you through some notes. It's not like these takes time to design. So that's like this is just one of the right sample work of natural language processing, what happens, and then like you will realize what happens behind, right? So first thing is like what we do is like we use, right, some libraries to collect all the data on from Twitter. So whoever has typed in Twitter, the data can be pulled in. So that data can be pulled in through something called as API, right? So we pull in those data, and once we pull in those data, right, we say what are the data we want. So it's like we specify. So here the specific words that are these are called as the keywords that we use, right? So we search for keywords. So we are telling the computer to search for these keywords. Where are you going to tell it? You're going to tell it to search it on Twitter. So search keywords like vaccine, vaccination, immunization, Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson. So these were the keywords used for this particular show, right? This particular search. And it says that, like, go through the tweet and find out how many likes. So first thing you say, unless there is 1,000 likes and above, don't consider that tweet. So you're telling the computer to do these things, right? Count, right? And apart from that, like, the limit we have set is like we can't go beyond 26,000. So the moment you reach 26,000 tweets, stop and pull all the data, right? So if I ask you to read 26,000 tweets and give me the report, you can understand how much time you will take as human being to process the tweet, right? And find out all the tweets just related to, right, these words itself is going to be a challenge, because the number of tweets that happen every single day, it runs in millions. And from that, like, you need to, so then you do the search. So when you do the search, it starts pulling the data. Okay. So this data, if we have to read, we won't understand. So what we do, we convert it into a particular file or folder in a format. So this format can be CSV, this format can be, right, Excel or any other formats or SQL formats. There are different formats that you can convert it into, right? CSV is one of the formats that you convert it into, right? It's called as the comma separated value. So this gets converted, and once it gets converted, you start reading. So how many tweets have come to us with this? It's like 25,000. We limited ourselves. So we have got 25,774 tweets. And these tweets are in, right, this 36 different columns. So we have pulled in this data. Now the data has come in. This is, I'm just talking about the text data that is in. Now, if you are going to pull in data through voice, you have to pull in the data through voice and then convert it into text and then analyze. So there is, like, this is the stage where, like, the text is already there. So now we have pulled in data. Now we are going to work around this data. So we will import all the libraries that is required, and we'll start checking the data. So once we start checking the data, we will see what it is, right? We will see what are the different columns that are there, the rows are there, all this, right? Starts checking who tweeted, what they tweeted, right? We can check for individual, right, IDs, what they tweeted, how many times they tweeted, things like that. So these are some of the news channels that they tweeted. So depending on your case, you can actually work on this, right? When it was tweeted, how, what, which year, which month, all this is first checked upon, right? We are telling to the computer to do all this, and the computer is giving us the output. And when we tell it, right, you tell it in a certain way, and then it gives you the output. And out of the output, you start shrinking and shrinking things, right? And to the point that where you come across, right, you say that, okay, now you analyze this and tell me. So you're creating set after set, and then, like, below that, you're creating the subsets, right? You're checking the word frequencies, what is happening. Every tweet, how many words are there, right? So all this, you're using different softwares to give you all this data, right? So you're using different libraries, different softwares to submit the reports, right? The computer is going to give you the report. And when the computer starts giving reports, you can always create visualizations out of it. These visualizations help you to just get into the system's understanding. So the way humans understand. For example, the computer, after all this, like when we create the visualization, it says how many tweets were positive, how many tweets were not neutral, and how many tweets were negative when it was related to this particular keywords, right? So the good part is, like, when people are talking about on Twitter about vaccinations, right? There are more positive tweets than neutral or negative tweets. How? Because we have programmed it in certain way, and like we have added sentiments to it. We have used polarity. We have used all different sets to find it out, right? So the next part is like whether it is subjective or objective, right? Where some tweets are like pretty natural. Some tweets are not natural. It's like planned, and it's right. So we have to find out, right, whether it is subjective or what kind of sentiment it was. So, and within that tweet, what we do is like we use stop words. Now every tweet, right, every word, sometimes there are hashtag attached to it, there are colons attached to it, there are http, so unnecessary words which are there. So there is the entire corpus which is there with unnecessary. So when we tweet, we don't just say that, oh hi, how are you, just so we will add, how there will be an emoji that will be added to it, right, emoticon, right? And then like you'll just say hashtags, or you'll just have an exclamation mark, you'll put it in quotes, you'll put question mark towards the tweet, right? Depending on what we are. So we'll use all the stop words. So if you're seeing, all this goes around, right, by the data scientists, all this, right, it's taken care of by the data scientist. He learns, he just teaches the computer to work on. So for example, right, LDA is one of the tools that you use for visualization. Now in LDA, now if you see, let me just show you this, it becomes, so it will form a group of texts, right, all the words that are being used. So this is one group where, right, if you see where the words come in, vaccine, what are the most prominent word which are being used, how many times COVIDs are used, this group uses certain things, this group will use in a certain way, right? This group uses different words in certain way, and this group. So which are, whatever popular groups are, it creates into group, and then we analyze. So it's like you're collecting the data, creating different samples, and based on different samples, you're analyzing, and you keep going, you create something like interesting word clouds. Right now you see these kind of images, correct? When you Google, there are times like when these kind of images come in. Yes? No? Anybody? I understand. So you can imagine, right, how people are feeling, So as we go along, right, data scientists starts thinking about all this. They have to come up with all these setups, and then they have to do a model. And once they have done with the model, right, they are supposed to, right, get into cleaning and then like analyze all the different models that are run. Okay, so right, these are different algorithms that are run, and based on the algorithms you have the results. And what you do is, here this is where your statistics knowledge will come into picture. Based on your statistics, like you will finalize the what is the correct way of analyzing a particular data. And once you have that data, you get into the clear-cut system, right, of finding that which model is the best model to give you the right kind of results that you are looking for. Okay, so coming back to our presentation. Now, this is just one part that we were just discussing, right? NLP, as natural language processing, has like this vast arrangement that happens, right? So the next thing I would like to know is like, does anybody has any questions so far? Anybody? Anybody has any questions?
No, sir. No, sir.
Okay. So what happens now? There are different types of natural language processing that are there. Text based, right, voice based or audio based. Then there are computational models which are there. Then there are text analysis that happens. There are pattern analysis. There are discovery of new insights that happens. There are machine translations of languages that happens. So you speak into one language and it gives you the output in other languages. So that's one of the natural language processing system, right? There are different algorithms, right? So these are sample algorithms, which, right, you work on summarizers, you work on sentiment analysis. So out of these, the current one which we saw as sample work was sentiment analysis, right? There are auto keywords tag through LDA, right? Then we analyze tweets, analyzing the URLs, or you are analyzing the site maps. So based on all this, we get into the next set. So overview of natural language processing is your regular expressions are more important part of NLP. So which can be used for pattern matching, filtering. Now, remember that we just saw how complicated, right, this system is. So, but like when it comes to filtering and patterning, it's always going to be, right, confusing just for using the regular expressions. So there is something called as REGEX for regular expressions that we use. But then there are cheat sheets available to compute them and get things done. Then you get into feature engineering, which forms into, right, essential and, right, what is working with data, right, which feature is the best feature, you pull in, you shortlist them. Now, common feature engineering techniques are removing the stop words, stemming, lemmatization, n-grams. N-grams are like we saw, which are the most popular words, most common words which are used together. Right. Similarly, when you're, right, diving deeper into, right, grammar and linguistic, context-free grammars, part of speech tagging, all this starts becoming important. So in this context, if you see parsing trees, so like you form trees. There is something called as decision trees, or there are different methodology which we start forming as tree, right? Like trees have a lot of branches. This will start having a lot of branches, right? Because the words are going to be ambiguous anyways. This is the natural language. We are not going to understand. So how you pre-process your data will have a major effect on what you're going to conclude as, right? What you're going to draw a result of, right? With your classification problem. So if you see, right, NLP, right, that's natural language processing, right, machine learning, artificial intelligence, and deep learning. This is how the entire graph looks like. So each one of them, right, deal and club with each other into different spaces, and then it depends. There are interdependency which are created, right? It starts working on them. Now there are different levels of languages, right, which is worked on, whether it is phonetics or morphology, syntax based, semantics based, or pragmatics based, right? So when you talk about phonetics, all sounds and systems. So right, there are system sounds and then the normal sounds that comes in. Morphology is mostly based on the words and the forms. Syntax are based on clauses and sentences, and semantics is based on like meanings of various kinds, right? What it means, like when you say hi, what it means. When you say hello, what it means. When you say hello, what it means. It's a different ways, right? Same thing can be worked on. And pragmatics is basically, right, the language use. Now, by the time they get into this itself, it's headache, but then they have to go further deep, right? And because they are supposed to go further deep, you get into the neural networks. So neural networks is like you're getting the documents, and then like the first part I'm talking about, you detect the language. Once you detect the language, you convert it into, right, you do the pre-processing, you pick up any languages, right? Once the language gets detected, it goes into pre-processing, then the modeling comes into picture, and then you have whether to do sentiments, or you have to do classification, or you have to do an entity extractions, or translation, or topic modeling. There are various levels that you will do with the neural networks. Now, deep learning based NLP becomes even more complicated and complex, right? So at the pre-processing level itself, like there are multiple layers, and then it gets layer after layer after layer after layer, right? You start, the more layers you create, it starts getting into the accuracy section, right? And then each section has multiple outputs, right? So when you're talking about sentiment classification, so each output will be, right, it's like one, you have reached a particular point, and then it will give you results for all. Whether it is you're talking about sentiment, it can give you result. Whether you're talking about classification, it can give you result. Entity extractions, right, it can give you results. Or topic modeling, it can give you results. So this is the life of, right, a data scientist who is working on natural language processing. Now tell me, anybody, right, for that matter, what do you think after doing all this, right, a data scientist would be thinking about? Anybody? Hello, anybody home? Yes, Prasanna.
Sir, maybe actually the data scientist might be thinking to how to analyze this data, all these data, and process it.
Okay. And if we are talking about this, by the time all this at this stage, right? Do you think a single data scientist will be able to handle all this properly?
No, sir.
Right? And at your level of work, do you think whether this is going to be easy?
Definitely not, sir.
Definitely not, right? So understand, when you talk about natural language processing, right, the moment they start getting deeper and deeper into this, right, this is what happens to a data scientist. It's like, oh God, what happened? I'm clueless what is happening. I'm doing that. The stress factor takes up. They don't know because, right? First, we saw that there are so many variations into the languages we speak about, right? And then, like, you have to understand them. You have to, right, make the computer understand that at different levels, whether you're talking about sentiments or whether you're talking about just classifying things. It's really becomes a challenge, right? And this is where exactly our neuro-linguistic programming comes in the picture. Because whether it is to statistically analyze everything, right, or just do the normal analysis, you end up into a stage that you are clueless on what's happening, and you are not able to cope up with things if all these things is put on to you. So neuro-linguistic programming, right, comes in the picture, and this is applicable for everybody, whether it's your becoming a data scientist or not, it's immaterial. But neuro-linguistic programming is for every individual, right, every person, right, who is processing within the system. So because it involves us as humans, now it's not involving, right, the machines so far. So here it's, right, what you are processing. So neuro as the first part, right, what happens is it is the way you use your senses. So what are your senses? Anybody knows about the senses? Humans have senses, correct? What are the 5 senses?
Taste, smell, touch.
Correct. So what happens is all the 5 senses, whether you're talking about, right, hearing, you're talking about smelling, you're talking about seeing, right, you're talking about the touch, right? So all the different senses, all the 5 senses which are there, which, right, it collects data from all different angles, right? And through the senses, what you, right, you understand what is happening around. So sometimes you're walking and you smell something, right? You will, right, through the sensors, it has given you the information, and it's giving, the brain is processing and it's telling you what is happening. So somebody is, right, for example, cooking biryani, right? Or, right, if you pass a restaurant, right, you will know, if you, even if your eyes are closed, the smell will tell you, correct, the biryani is being cooked, Yes, no? Hello, anybody? Yes. So neuro is that part. Now, linguistic is basically the words that you use, all your words, the way you use your language, how it influences you, right? All this is based on the linguistic part of it, right? And your programming part is, right, your behavior. What are you going to do with this, right? Your behavior is what you mainly plan into, right? How you're going to organize your behavior. And once you have organized your behavior, right, you can take into consideration, right? Because what's happening is the language is influencing you. And based on the influence, you are working on your behavior. If you modify your behavior, the action that is going, like the based on the action that you take, the output that is going to come to you will change, right? It will start working on it. So how we do it, let's just check on that. Now, all this information comes in, right? How are we going to receive the information? There are 2 million bits per second, right? The information comes in through all the senses, right? So this, how many can we deal? Just around 7, right? Some people can deal with only few. Some people can do multitasking and do
How do our brain
all the data that is there, that comes in, right? It will be getting into the system. 1 second, just okay. So what you do with this data is what is going to be the key, right? So you are going to store it into your mental map. So there is something called as, like, your brain has certain way of understanding it. Some people understand through visuals. Some people understand through hearing, right? Some people understand through different senses, all the different. Some people require touch to understand certain things. So this information is gathered, right? You represent, like, this information is being stored in different compartments of your brain, right? So if you're going to be scientific, it is going to, different compartment is going to be used. If you're going to be, right, more logic, different compartment of your brain is going to be used. So what neuro-linguistic programming trains on is how to compartmentalize all this information that comes in, right? And once this comes in as information, you do your internal representation, right? Now this storage of information, once that comes in, we start simplifying all the incoming information. How we simplify, right? First is like the deleting part happens, right? So whatever comes in, so you don't pay attention to everything that comes in. So for example, like now we are training, right? On the visual side, you have kept your, let's say you're on the phone, right? Through the Zoom call, right? One of your senses is like constantly hearing the call. You're noting down with the pen and pencil, right? What's happening, right? The other senses. So your focus is here. In the background, right, there might be some music playing in, but then you delete that information, right? Your internal sensory portion deletes that information, and it does not allow you to get disturbed. But then if that noise gets louder and louder and louder, you're taking away your attention. So neuro-linguistic programming trains you to how to get into the compartment or the zone of the information that you need properly. Okay. And then all this information we distort. We create meaning through concentration on some portion of information, and whatever is not needed, we start ignoring. And once that is done, we generalize. Right? How we generalize? Right? We make a broad or universal claims on the basis of the limited evidence that we have. Right? And then we come up with our own perceptions, our own way of it. Now, remember that a brain develops around 20 years of your lifetime. So right from the time the child is born, it takes around 20 years to get it fully developed. Right? So because it is starting information. So it's like a wired instrument, right? Your brain, and all these connections are happening constantly. And if you keep learning new things every time, right, your brain will be active with a lot of new connections. And with a lot of new connections that is happening with your brain, you will be able to do much better things at a later stage. You will be trained on this system. Now, how this processing happens? First, it's like information comes in, and you have developed over the period of this 20 years, 25 years, or 30 years, whatever is your current ages, you have developed, right, your beliefs, your values, your memories that are there, your experience that are there, your attitude that is there. Based on all that, right, you are forming some informations processing. All these informations are processing at different zones, right? You are deleting, distorting, and generalizing the information like we saw earlier. And then you have the internal representation, right? Your visual store as pictures, right? Whatever is there. What we do is all the information that is here, it's passed on based on the state. So the state of level, right, it creates an emotion. Now these emotions, right, gets added to your physiology. So that means, like, in anger, sometimes you say, get out. You're using your hand. Now this is not basically right. You've not trained it, but like what has happened is your sensory perception has created that process. So this is like working at the subconscious level and unconscious level. Your hand automatically moves. So if somebody says that I want to go to a particular place, right, and you're standing in front of you, right, each other, you're going to give directions automatically. When you say, right, you do just say go there, that side. What you do is go to this place, do this. You don't do that. What you do, say, okay, do one thing, go to your left there, and from there, when you take your left, you go on the right side, like you will have these. And then, so now what you're doing is you're looking at that direction, your hands are moving there, right? All this information that through your sensory is, right, being used, and you're using your physiology, and that creates your external behavior. But if you have control over all your senses properly, right, you will be able to take it to the next level. Understood? Yes. Yes, Pandana, any questions? Okay. Okay. Yeah. So now this internal representation, when it happens, there are like, one is your information is through visual, then like your listening, your auditory, and it's like it then gets converted into as a feeling of yours. So because all this process happen internally, the output comes in the picture. Now, if you're going to see, right, your presupposition, which is considered for any kind of neuro-linguistic programming, understand the map is not the territory. It is the space that you're using of your mental world, right? So your internal mental world is one thing that, so you have created your perception of your reality within your mental map. And if you know to use the map properly, right, you will be able to get the output. And once you have got the output, you will be able to, right, control it properly. So if you're going to change your perception, your output changes. If you're going to change your action, the output changes. How to change these action, right, is what NLP teaches you. Right? So if you're talking about understanding our language, like we are naturally responding because the perception that we have created over the period of time. Right? And then get into the reality world. Now, I want you to tell, what do you see? So we have Swastika. Swastika, what do you see?
A lady with crown.
A lady with crown. Right? So yeah. And Spandana, what do you see? Or Prasanna, what do you see? Anybody? You have Rahil, Krishnadev. Okay, so we have this message. Okay, so right, there are, right? So we have old, somebody is seeing old women. How many of you see old women? You can always, like, you don't need to talk. You can always type and reply on that. Okay. Okay, so as you see, right, if you see it from a particular angle, if you see this particular section only, right, this becomes, if this becomes nose, you see a young lady. If this becomes the nose, you see the old lady. So based on that, right, you are going to, from the angle that you are seeing, right, you are going to create a perception of yours. You understanding? It all depends on from what angle you're seeing, but both are telling the truth because it's their perception, that the way they have perceived it. Right? Now, similarly, now when you talk about O, right, it's an alphabet in English. Now, when you same thing is shown as a number in mathematics, it's full stop in Chinese writing, a note to complete in music, a cake in baking, and in Taoism, it's the beginning and the end of the cycle. right? So these are different. So a single alphabet in English can have so many meanings in different languages, right? We try to through neuro-linguistic programming, we understand all this and we create our world by and easily understanding what that means and how to perceive. So you're going to change your perception and get into the reality. Now, how you do it? Simple. You are going to understand the internal representation systems, how the language pattern works, and then like you're going to calibrate it. How the calibration works, you look, you listen, you feel, all the three things happen, right? And then you go into. So at the next level, rapport matching happens, you're mirroring, you're right, you're creating a pace of your perception, and then like you're going to lead. So every time when you start understanding your own emotions, right, you will start taking control of it. And when you're understanding your own emotions, your system, right, you're able to understand the other person. And when you're able to understand the other person, you're getting into, right, a systematic way of looking at things. Let's, right, understand one important thing, right? Whether it is eyes, ears, nose, tongue, or touch, right? You're communicating through all these different senses to all different people, right? And when you're communicating to all these different people, right, you're communicating to yourself also in the same way. Your internal communication happens through all this sensory system. So what NLP is going to do is this, right? I'm talking about neuro-linguistic programming. It's going to do is this, all the stress and everything that you have been building on your regular work, or let's say as a data scientist, you're going to get into natural language processing or deep learning. What's happening is your perception starts working on, and slow and steadily you start shifting depending on the computer a lot. And that's not the whole purpose of you giving the output, right? You're going to pull information, you will know the right kind of information to pull in, and based on that, give out the result. So whether you're doing data scientist role, you're being a software engineer, or you're going to work into a sales field, everything, if you understand the NLP part, right, that is the neuro-linguistic programming part, you will be able to get into. I'll give you a simple example, right, for eyes, how eyes works in. So according to the NLP theory, that's neuro-linguistic programming theory, at any particular time, your involuntary eye movement, right, what happens is like you're looking at things, right, involuntarily, right? You're not doing it on purpose. If you're seeing somebody, when you look into the eyes, what's happening, you will know exactly what is there in the mind. Let me give you an example. I'll show you how it works. Now, a person's eye movement will reveal if they are, right, thinking about something, they're running a video in their brain, right, or they're listening, right, they're feeling the emotions, right? What is happening just by looking into the eyes. So, and this is just one part of your, right, neuro-linguistic programming. How this works, let me give you an example. Now I'm looking at, now this particular image, everybody's like, all of you are sitting in front of the computer and you are looking at the person straight, right, this image. So when you look into the eyes of the person, if the eyes of the person is to your right and the person's who is there, the person's left. So that means when you're looking at me now, right, if I'm looking at that side, if you're looking at the left angle, right, on top, I'm trying to remember, visualize images. So I'm getting into my past with all the images that has been stored. So just by the eye movement, you will be able to find out. Okay. Now, for any kind of, like when the eyes starts moving on the center, right? You're trying to have your auditory, you're trying to focus on your ears, right? And when you're looking, it goes, when the eye goes down into that direction, you're looking into, right? You're facing me and I'm doing all these. So what does that mean? When I'm looking there, right? That means like I'm more focused on my kinesthetic. So that means, right, I'm more focused on there is an internal dialogue that is happening between, right, all my sensory perceptions. The same way, right, when I am getting into the right side top, I'm getting into my dream world. I'm visualizing the future. So this goes into the past, this goes into the future. Right? Now here, now when you're talking about this side, now what I'm doing is I'm trying to develop something new. Right? And same way, right? What I'm doing is when I'm looking down on the right side, my eyes is facing down. I'm trying to check out. You're understanding what I'm saying? So just by the eye movement of somebody, you will be able to tell what the other person is, right? So imagine, right, you want to show it to the other person. If you want to purposefully, right, create, right, certain things, you want to create future, you're getting into the imagination part and work around that and construct things, right? Keep your eye on the right top. You will be able to get it quickly because your brain functions, right? It's designed into systems. How it is you're right. There is like this right side of the brain. There is this left side of the brain. If you're trying to recollect things that you have done it in the past, your left top is going to give you the answers. If you're trying to create something new, right top is going to give you the answers. Understood? How, right, exciting this is. I'm talking about just by the eye movement, nothing more than that. Right? When you're looking into the person, this is what happens. Right? Now, I want you guys to experiment this one of these days. Right? Whenever you're there, let's say when you're getting to, right, you're standing into the balcony, right? And somewhere down the road, right, you want that person who is not facing you, right, to look back at you, right? How would you do that? How are you going to? You can't use the voice to shout, look at me. It's too embarrassing. So you can send your signal through your visuals to their, right, auditory and perceptory section that is in the center of this particular. So if you just focus here of that person, right, that person, you don't have to look at anywhere else. You just need to focus there. Now you're sending the signal without even talking. You're sending the signal through your visuals, right? his perceptions, his sister, his or hers, right, will respond back, and it will start like, oh, somebody is looking at me. It will start searching for you. And this exactly what happens, is that's the power of the, right, the neural network that we as humans we have. Right, so we are, if we start developing and working on this, great. And our data science program, which is there, has this as one of the additional support system that we create. You can learn NLP, whether you want to become data scientist or not, you can learn NLP all together in different way. If you want to improve your memory, how you will do, right? You will start, if you start using NLP. If you want to improve your relationships with others, start using NLP, right? If you want to start working on yourself, your thinking, if you're depressed, you want to come out of it, start using NLP. If you're getting, right, too much worked up, start using NLP. If you're, right, having less sleep and more of stress, start using NLP, right? Now this NLP, not the other NLP. And to improve that NLP of machine learning, use this NLP. So, right, if you want to improve your statistics, your mathematical skills, start using NLP. If you want to start being creative, start using all this. Now, what happens is, the foundation of NLP is based on 4 aspects. One is your rapport. It concentrates on your strategies for building a relationship with oneself and others in order to influence. So you have to influence yourself also, you have to influence others also. This is where we are. Now you are aware of your senses. So if you're able to, right, be in control of your senses, you will see, right? You will decide what you need to smell, what you need to hear, what you need to see, what you need to taste, right? Or what you need to touch. Now, if you know, if you are control of all this, even COVID can't touch you. Because you will be aware, okay, right? You're conscious about what's happening. Right? All your senses, you are aware of it. Nothing. So when people are paying attention to their senses, right, their world, their own world can be perceived in a much better fashion. And that will result in your outcome thinking. So like if you have heard about something called as The Secret, or somebody saying that if you, right, focus on something, and if you are desperate to want something, the entire universe conspires to, right, bring that to you. Like, and the same word was used by Shah Rukh Khan also in movie, right? So when he says that किसी को अगर तुम, right, पूरे दिल से चाहो तो सारी कायनात उसे तुमसे मिलाने के लिए जुड़ जाती है, something like that, the dialogue. That it's this, right, the statement from The Secret. So the same way, right, if you're able to have control over your senses, the entire universe will get that to you. Right, the strategies, the motivation, whatever, right, whatever negative problems you have, you neglect it along with their effects, right? You start getting into, right, motivating your positive emotions, right, your thinking, all this you do, that's your result that comes in. And same way, right, it will help you to be flexible with your behavior, how you react, right? Instead of reacting, how you respond. Even when you're reacting, you have a controlled reaction, right? So all this is going to work. So how ready you are for this new methods or behaviors is what is going to be important, right? So understand this, and this is what is going to, by bit, right, we should be able to working on each senses. So when it comes to neuro-linguistic programming, it's worked on each senses, how to do that, right? It's a practice that needs to be done regularly, right? And the program gets you into that, right? And the result is like the action you put in, the result changes according to the action that you put in. That's very important. So clubbing both the NLPs, right? There are 8 stages, whether it's like whether you're stating something, right? How far the interaction has come in, how we set the scene, how we collect the data, how we put it into different compartments, you're setting the state. And you're mentally, what you're doing is you're creating a condition into the set. And then like what you're checking out is the outcome. What you want to achieve, what the others want to achieve. So when you're doing it internally, it's the right, you are the client for yourself. When you're doing externally, the other person is the client. So when you're working on the natural language processing becomes your client. So what that out of that natural language processing, out of that algorithm, what are you trying to achieve, that you work on. And then like you get into this rapport building, your quality of communication, right, becomes important. You're building a rapport, evaluate the current situation into the stage, what is happening, what they've already been done, and what are the improvements that needs to be done. So if you're working on a model, right, what is the current model giving you as a result, and what is it going to come? So if you just go by these steps, you should be able to have the results in the desired manner and in a very relaxed manner. You don't have to worry too much about everything that is happening. You allow machine to do its work, you do your work. That is it. The stress comes in when you start doing the work of machine and the machine starts doing your work, right? So you use all the techniques that or the tasks that has to be done in a systematic manner next, and then you step yourself into the future. That is like getting into the prediction part of it, or mentally rehearsing like what is going to be coming to you. All right. And ultimately, you're getting into the section where you're getting into the last frame, right, of your desired result. Right. So whatever support that is needed, whatever support you can provide, and this is like a cycle. It keeps on going on and on, because there is no limit to your self-improvement and learning. Remember that the capacity of your brain, you're not even using 1% of it, right? If your 1% can complicate your things so much, imagine when you start using the entire right capacity of your brain. So with this, I want to tell and ask you only one question, right? Which role in your life would you like to take? One where you're the driver and you're driving and you're always in control of your journey, or you want to be the passenger, always being controlled by others in your journey. Anybody? Which role would you in life would you like to take?
Be the driver.
Right? You want to be the driver. And when you want to be the driver, right, have right your senses under your control, you will be the driver. Right? Right? So Dalai says the driver, absolutely. Correct. So when you're talking about being a driver, right, neuro-linguistic programming is one thing that is going to help you. It's not that like you need to learn it from us only. You can learn it anywhere, right? You can learn it from anybody. Now this is going to be, right? Yeah, so Dala, it is not exactly that way. It's the perception, right? It's not demeaning to be controlled by others. It's like your perception. When you want to go by the flow, you go by the flow. But then like you have to be controlled. You know, you should know. See, what happens is as, right, person, right, as an individual, you decide what, for example, right, if you were going to listen to some kind of audio, you need to decide that what audio needs to come to your ears. If you're going to see, for example, you decide to see a movie, your visuals, right? You need to decide on you. It's not going to be always like, okay, I mean, sometimes like when you go with the friends, like you're going to have fun to watch movie, that's different, right? But at the same time, like you need to be really under control of yourself. So, and this is exactly what happens when you learn neuro-linguistic programming, right? And correct, yeah, you need to have critical thinking also, and you have to wear different hats at different stages, right? Neuro-linguistic programming will set a stage for having all this. So when you're talking about as a data scientist, natural language processing, that you need to train the computer in that fashion. When you're training yourself, you need to train yourself in a particular fashion. And when you're doing all that, it's going to give you the result that, right, it is good. Thank you very much for this wonderful presentation. NLP is amazing. Now, which NLP is again this. So neuro-linguistic programming is amazing as far as this we are concerned. Natural language processing is amazing when it comes to machine learning, because you're training. It's so exciting that you're actually training, right, a computer, what you yourself don't understand properly, but then like you are putting down so much of efforts into getting into, and then like you're training the right computers to do it, right? And the fact is, with NLP, right, there are so many exciting things that is coming up. Like now you're able to talk to Siri and tell Siri to find things for you. Or you're able to talk to Alexa and tell Alexa that, okay, this is what there is, get me there, right? So they are able to, right? Google is able to guide you thanks to, right, with your voice, it's able to guide you thanks to NLP. So both the NLP hold equal importance. But then when it comes to neuro-linguistic programming, it is at a higher platform because it is going to deal with you. It's not only going to deal with machine. It will. So neuro-linguistic programming is going to help you understand, deal with machines also, not only humans, right? So don't go get into this. I mean, don't go away from this. That's the whole idea, right? Work around this, and we are going to be always there for your support and help. Anything that you require anytime, just let us know, and we will be able to help you out in that. So with this, right, thank you everybody for being here and going through this patiently, because I know both these topics are highly technical, at the same time highly exciting also, whether it is natural language processing, right, or neuro-linguistic programming. Both need efforts to, right, be programmed, right? So thank you. See you on the other side of the break. So when we all meet together, we are ready with the questions, answers. So there will be a quiz shortly sent to your email addresses, and that quiz will have just maybe a couple of questions or 3 questions. and we want you to know, right, how you deal with things, right? And how this particular session has helped you. We would like to know about that. So there would be this quiz, and once you answer that quiz, we'll also send you a certificate within 48 hours of receipt of your answers, a certificate stating that you participated in this particular webinar, right? And if anybody has any questions, I'll answer them. Otherwise, we can sign off. Any questions? Okay. So thank you all for being here today. And it's going to be amazing. And once again, we see you all on the other side of the break. Have a nice evening, or wherever you're in the world. It's morning for me in US, and wherever you're in the world, according to greetings for the day. Thank you very much, and bye.
Thank you, sir.